We've imported cultures which have far higher levels of violence than our own innate culture.
Our children are not safe at a Taylor Swift dance class during the school holidays. And they are not safe at school either. Today, an air ambulance was called to All Saints Catholic High School in Sheffield after a 15-year-old was stabbed with a 14-year-old arrested by police. Today, the MSM reluctantly broke away from covering lockdown cheat Slippery Starmer's latest uninspiring pro-UK diatribe in Brussels to break the news that is becoming all too predictable.
Police were called to reports of a stabbing at All Saints Catholic High School in Sheffield just after 12:15 this afternoon. When officers arrived, they quickly detained a teenage boy as they found that a 15-year-old youngster, another boy, had suffered serious injuries. He has been taken to hospital and we understand that his family are aware. Now, we do know that emergency services remain at the school itself.
Now, the head teacher of All Saints, Sean Pender, sent out a statement about today's incident to parents, saying that they have dealt with an extremely serious incident in school, resulting in us going into lockdown procedure. They said that the incident involved 2 students, one of whom we believe has been seriously injured. And Mr. Pender said that all other students are contained and safe. So that's a 14-year-old being detained by South Yorkshire Police, a school in lockdown and a 15-year-old in hospital with serious injuries, and their family informed after reports of a stabbing.
And in the past hour, the devastating news we all feared.
With great sadness that I share with you today, a teenager has died following a stabbing at a Sheffield school earlier today. Our thoughts are with the family of the boy, his friends and the whole school community. At 12:17 p.m, emergency services were called to All Saints Catholic High School on Granville Road. The victim, a boy.
Remember when we used to look arrogantly over at America when it came to school shootings and think it couldn't happen here? Well, it is happening here. Because British society is in decline. And I just feel a crushing and deep sense of sadness today about what I see with my own eyes as well. It's hard to shake. This weekend, my neighbour was robbed in broad daylight by 2 Asian men who threatened me with a drill when I confronted them. It was all to steal an electric bike. And then back to schools. A little covered case came to its conclusion today with a 14-year-old girl who stabbed 2 teachers and a pupil in Wales found guilty of attempted murder. Now, doesn't it say everything about this government that at the moment the 15-year-old was being killed at school, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, was talking about Ofsted inspections? And sure, that's important, but when we can't even protect our children at the school gates? And as usual, the elite class seem to be desperate to look for irrational solutions. Now, Idris Elba is a great actor and a good man with honourable intentions. But the BBC giving him a massive platform to suggest knives without sharp blades should be introduced to the UK seems to me the ultimate example of missing the real problem.
Is that kitchen knives are perhaps 25% of the knives used in most of the terrible crimes. That's one of the stats in the films. And those kitchen knives are usually a domestic situation, okay? So kitchen knives, of course, it's very difficult. They're a domestic knife. I do think there is areas of innovation that we can do with kitchen knives. I hate to say it, not all kitchen knives need to have a point on them. That sounds like a crazy thing to say, but actually it would reduce. You know, you can still cut your food without the point on the knife, which is an innovative way to sort of look at it. And in a country in crisis, I'm sorry, but yeah, let's look at that.
And I have absolutely no doubt that the crime wave sweeping the country, we all know it, by the way, regardless of the official crooked stats, makes it more likely real political change is coming. And Elon Musk agreed this weekend. When Rupert Lowe, the Reform UK MP growing in power and stature, posted at the weekend, Reform now 4 points ahead in the latest polling, we are going to win the next election, real change is coming, Elon simply replied, true. And it is Rupert's fighting talk that is galvanising Brits into believing that that sort of Trump change is possible, including MAGA-style deportations.
In a recent debate with an immigration lawyer, another profession pork-barrelling a living, I was told that a deportation scheme on the scale required would be impossible, as it would take a flight leaving every hour. That sounds like a very good starting point to me. The message has to be clear. If you're in our country illegally, expect deportation. Implement that on the scale required, and the boats will stop overnight. I can promise you that. Just look at what we've done to ourselves. There is only one chance to save this country, and that is by electing a reform government in 2029 or before. We have been shown the way by one Donald John Trump.
And Labour is starting to panic, with its left-wing organ The Observer reporting yesterday how Reform UK can, and I will say will, win tons of Labour seats whenever the next election is called. And it is partly because there is now an MP like Rupert Lowe who is not afraid to say the country is in trouble because of mass immigration.
But friends, be in no doubt that our country is in the most precarious position I can remember. And what is the root cause? Uncontrolled mass immigration. Immigration, immigration, immigration. Legal and illegal. If raising legitimate concerns about thousands and thousands of unchecked foreign males illegally entering our country makes me far right, then so be it. If objecting to these men, often from alien cultures that hold no respect for women, being housed in luxury accommodation.
And like Trump, Rupert Lowe is prepared to admit that DEI policies are just another example of anti-white racism.
We should call DEI what it is, anti-white racism. We must eradicate the poisonous diversity industry, scrap every DEI-related job, and judge people on merit and merit alone. I couldn't care if a workforce is diverse or inclusive. I only care if it's competent. That is all that matters.
And Rupert Lowe is gaining huge popularity. With our children being stabbed to death at school and Labour doing nothing to address the country's declining law and order, it does feel to me a matter of when, not if, the Trump-Musk revolution comes to the UK via folk like Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage. The only question is how long we can realistically wait before our society crumbles. Now it's time for The Outsider. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Alex Phillips. That's what
Hello,
she
darling.
said. The Substack, which I absolutely endorse and think you should all follow. And Alex, so great to have you because I know you have been very unwell. And it is horrible, actually, to start on this note, Alex. But I don't know about you, when I saw that South Yorkshire Police press conference this afternoon confirming that a 15-year-old boy had been killed at school, stabbed to death. A 14-year-old has been arrested on a murder, suspicion of murder. I just felt this crushing sense of sadness and hopelessness about what is going on in our country.
Right. Do you know, it's a bit, last night I was actually having a conversation with my other half, and we were talking about incidents from the past where young children have been murdered, like Damilola Taylor, and how much attention it got in the press. And now it's almost as if this is becoming normalized, that actually a young child being stabbed, let alone by another young child, is something that is becoming so seemingly commonplace that it barely warrants the media furore that once upon a time it used to attract. And you have to ask yourself culturally, what is going on? Now, I have my theories. I think that a big part of this is we've imported cultures which have far higher levels of violence than our own innate culture. And I think as well, young children are being exposed to the glorification of violent crime, whether that be through things they're watching online, whether that be through groups on social media, whether that be through culture such as drill music. Now, we don't know the identity of these youngsters. I doubt we will, because the law precludes minors from being identified in the press. There'll be a lot of people who will suspect there might be a racial or cultural or religious element to this. But frankly speaking, now the problem of knife crime pervades society. It is across all communities. There was not long ago a similar story in Wales, actually, where a young girl aged 14 or 15 had brought a weapon to school, and the school had been locked down and armed police had to be called. And you kind of think to yourself, why is it that children are wanting to go out and violently harm, even murder other children? Something's gone so drastically wrong. I think we do need to start looking at online. Normally, I would not agree with anything the Home Secretary says in the form of Yvette Cooper, but she is talking about really cracking down on social media and online websites where violent content is available to young people. Not just young people, frankly, it should be violent content available to anybody. I do agree that that needs to happen. I think for too long, the World Wide Web has been the Wild Wild West, and it's been allowed to regulate itself. And there's all sorts of poisonous, toxic material on there, from pornography to violence, that is deeply harming mental health and social stability. But, you know, I think we do also need to have very, very complex conversations about cultural elements as well.
Well, I completely agree. And the problem is, Alex, it's all well and good for Yvette Cooper to try and say, oh, it's down to the social media companies, or it's down to Jeff Bezos and Amazon. But to me, that avoids what the real problem is. And what's so disturbing is people in America can see all too clear. I mean, I know you're just back from the inauguration in DC. They all know what's happening over here. JD Vance, Tucker Carlson, they know. Their elite class talk about the issues that are happening in the UK. We don't. And look, I don't want to personally attack Idris Elba. I know the guy. I know his heart is in the right place. But the problem is, Alex, it's ludicrous when we start suggesting, let's remove blades from all of our knives. It's like total diversion. And again, I'm not attacking him personally. I know he wants to do good, but that is not going to solve the issue. If people want to find a knife, they will find a knife.
Yeah, I mean, and not just a knife. There are all sorts of things which are now indiscriminately used as murder weapons. I mean, when people get older, cars seem to be something, and, you know, ramming into crowds of people. If people want to find a way to cause grievous bodily harm to somebody else, there are plenty of tools at their disposal. You just have to be rather creative. So it's a cultural issue that we have to address first. What is going on here? Again, we're not going to have much information, I don't think, about this particular incident. We don't know if it's gang related. We know that young people increasingly are being drawn into the drugs trade. We don't know if this is cultural, whether this is someone, say, from the Muslim faith stabbing someone from another faith. We don't know. We really don't know. These could be two white kids, two black kids, two Asian kids, a mixture. We have no idea what's gone on here. And like I said, problem of knife crime now pervades so many sections of society, so many communities, that it'd be anybody's guess. But I do think this started with the importation of violent culture from other countries, because this didn't used to be a problem here. And I think that it's being fueled as well by the importation of violent culture from other countries. And I again hark back to things like drill music. What on earth are young people watching and consuming online that they are motivated to seek vengeance with mortal force? What is going on here? I mean, this really needs to be analysed from all directions. Yes, I think we do need to have conversations about regulation of the internet, of social media. This isn't about free speech, it is about safety. You wouldn't walk down a high street, right, and have sex shops and peep shows and places selling illegal drugs and young kids being able to buy cannabis gummies. And, you know, you would not have that in the physical, material world if you walk from, you know, from one side of a town centre to the other. But this is what the online atmosphere is like for many young people. So we do need to talk about that. But we shouldn't do that and go, well, that's going to solve the problem, or changing the way knives are made are going to solve the problem. The problem begins, frankly, with the people perpetrating these acts and what is getting into them, what is inspiring them and motivating them. And that is harrowing. You know, these are young kids. Young kids these days have lost any form of childhood innocence. They are exposed to way too much. We've had this conversation, okay, since I was a kid. You know, I remember with the awful incident of Jamie Bolger and that kidnapping, and we were told, oh, maybe it's violent computer games. You know, maybe on some level it is, actually. We've stopped having that conversation. And when you look at some of the games that young people are playing now, they're riddled with violence. But is it also some of the films they're watching, the music they're listening to? Is it just things going on in chat groups? Is it videos they're watching online on things like YouTube or on Snapchat? I mean, children need to be mollycoddled to some degree, and it isn't about free speech. It is about protecting them and their young plastic minds with an incubation of safety, because they're not old enough to make decisions. They're not old enough to formulate decent opinions, sound ideas. And they're usually hyper emotional with hormones rattling around all over the place. So you can't just throw them into a situation where they can be, accessed by anybody, encouraged by anyone, drawn into gangs, watch violence online and just go, oh, well, that's not going to have any repercussions.
But first, do you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected online? But I have been thinking lately of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers. And I'm delighted to tell you I have now found the solution. And what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world. So I need to tell you about Surfshark. It is an incredible and easy to use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activity stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the thing is, the benefits of Surfshark actually go way beyond keeping you safe online, because this app allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and channels anywhere in the world. That includes streaming services, by the way, like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock. Or if you have a favorite show that is blocked on a service like Netflix here in the UK, or Amazon Prime, or Disney Plus elsewhere, within seconds you can be watching as if you're in another country. It's really great for sport too. If you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can get all your favorite content from home. Surfshark is also an insurance policy against creeping censorship, because many countries are now considering blocking certain platforms. France, for example, has blocked Rumble. So Surfshark allows you to watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It is true freedom. A VPN can also save you money, because you get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. There are other benefits of Surfshark too. You can use on unlimited devices, and your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. There are over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, meaning a world of choices at your fingertips. Plus, if this is your first time using a VPN, and if it is, my goodness, I recommend you get one ASAP, 24/7 customer service available to you. Go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark, so confident they're the best VPN in the world. I use them. I can vouch for that. They will give you a full refund within 30 days if you're not entirely satisfied. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Well, I know, and imagine if you are a youngster now, and this is certainly something that you probably didn't have growing up, Alex, or most people didn't have in our generation growing up here, you are going to be scared for your safety now at school or your safety at a dance class. That is utterly, utterly appalling because that plays with your psyche as well. But Alex, can I just ask you about the political dimension to this? We saw Rupert Lowe this weekend being incredibly bold at the Reform UK regional conference in Essex, especially on that issue of mass deportations, an area where it almost feels like he's positioning himself to the right of Nigel Farage, receiving the endorsement of Elon Musk, certainly in terms of what he's saying, just after this fallout between Musk and Farage. What do you make of the rise of Rupert Lowe?
Yeah, I mean, Rupert's just proven himself to be real high quality. I think a chart came out earlier showing the activity out of MP's office, and he's the second most active in Parliament, and it shows. Nigel is a party leader, okay? So Nigel is going to be very busy right now building the party up from the grassroots onwards. Nigel's an old hat in politics. He knows the game. He knows he's got to tread carefully. He also knows the media are using divide and conquer at the moment with reform. They can't help but want to bring up Tommy Robinson with Nigel. And Nigel knows all too well that that's a contentious subject for him because the media will go to town if he runs to Tommy Robinson's defence, at eclipsing anything else he has to say and alienating one group of the electorate that right now, and you can tell by the polling, are going, I rather like reform. I could vote for them. And at the other side, he risks potentially losing the base votes because he's not coming out in defence of Tommy Robinson. What people need to understand is this is a tactic being used deliberately by other parties and the media to try and break up the solidity of Reform UK. Now, I have no doubt that whatever Rupert decided to say at the conference, Nigel would have known about it. There's only 5 of them in Parliament. It's not like they're not all meeting all the time and having conversations and discussing what policy should be. It's not like this is a party of 300 or pulling in different directions. And I have no doubt Nigel has said himself repeatedly that we need to have deportations of people who are here illegally. There is a sort of strain right now, people wanting reform to go much further, much faster. But again, you've got to be politically astute. And we're looking and applauding what Donald Trump is doing. He is deporting criminals. He is deporting people who have broken into the country. He is deporting people who have broken the law. And that is what reform is saying needs to be done. It's interesting. Today, a leaked report has come out of the EU, authored initially by Poland, saying that the EU are now thinking of leaving the 1951 Refugee Convention, which is the treaty in which you have to give someone asylum if they come to claim it in your country. And it prohibits refoulement, which is essentially once there's been a deportation decision or in the process of that happening, the risk of someone being sent to a country that is deemed unsafe. Now, this report says that, people are coming here claiming asylum, but they don't want to integrate. They're creating balkanized communities. They're subverting European culture, European values. It's breaking up our society. And so we're going to potentially leave that treaty. That is astonishing. But when I look back to the hubris and the histrionics that Nigel Farage faced during the Brexit campaign, when he stood in front of that billboard with the snake of migrants coming across Europe, and it just said breaking point. He knew what was coming over the horizon. So I am not prepared to see Nigel being thrown under the bus as if all of a sudden he's irrelevant, as if someone's doing better than him. This is his game. He wrote the game. He's the one who's pushed politics where it's got to now. He's the one who's been the leading voice to that in the country. He's the one who time and again has shown that he's ahead of the arguments, that he is the vanguard for common sense, that he has the courage and the bravery to stick his head above the parapet. Right now, he's got to be a party leader, and his approach, whatever people might think, his approach is working. You look at that polling, his approach is working. If he had any issue with Rupert Lowe saying what Rupert Lowe has said, Rupert Lowe wouldn't have said it. So don't think for any minute that this is two people singing off different hymn sheets or one person bettering the other. This is a party which speaks with one voice because they're small enough, solid enough, brave enough. They've known each other a long time. We were all MEPs in that parliament together. Okay, I was there when reform was really being set up, and I was the one who encouraged the former Brexit Party MEPs to get back involved with reform. And it was just Richard Tice and David Bull. I got in there and said to the Rupert Lowes of this world, you need to come back. And I would be there myself, were I not a broadcaster, with a channel that says you can't be political because Ofcom will have your guts for garters, and that's my main source of income. I would be there myself. So I know what goes on in that party, and I don't particularly like to see this narrative coming out as if there are these divisions, as if one person's doing better than the other. They are proper teammates and allies who believe in the same thing and who have shown audacity and tenacity. And that is what this country needs. So let's just keep backing them.
Yes, and beautifully put. And by the way, as I keep saying, Alex, I would be very happy with Nigel Farage as Prime Minister, Rupert Lowe as Home Secretary, and I'd quite like Alex Phillips in the Cabinet too. Actually, I would be very happy with that. And I think it's a good point to make that Nigel is attempting to be a party leader, and it's very, very important to remind people of that. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.